Yeah, see, so you think Han shot first.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, thank you.
It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate, oh yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name's Mike Royer.
And this is our review episode for Solo, a Star Wars story that just came out this week.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not much of a superhero thing, but we're big Star Wars guys.
I was thinking that too. I was reading off my line, and I was like, I do put the emphasis on superheroes, but I would suppose Star Wars has kind of reached that franchise height to kind of be encapsulated with all of these superhero stuff going on. So yeah, I would say it's par for the course.
And also, I mean, I think, we like pop culture things. We're Star Wars fans. This is not out of our wheelhouse at all.
Yeah,
so.
And I mean, whether there are or aren't Jedis in this movie, Jedi, I would say, is very much a superhero. Like, they have powers, they have cool weapons, they're looked up to as heroes, sometimes vilified by the government. I mean, that's basically a superhero right there.
Also, I mean, on the flip side, Sith, I would be a superhero villain. So
yeah, the
you
perfect
go either way.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally defined as dark side and light side, so there you go.
Yeah.
But since spoilers did crop up there for a second in conversation, up front, we're just going to give you our initial impressions, spoiler free, and then the meat of this is going to be spoilers for sure. But we'll let you know. We'll put some timestamps wherever you see descriptions for where you're listening to this. So don't worry out there, kiddies.
That's right. So just to get it out of the way, so you guys aren't listening forever if you haven't seen it, Mike, would you tell people to watch or not watch Solo, a Star Wars story?
Oh, wow. Okay, here we go. So
putting on you this time.
This is a surprisingly competent, enjoyable movie. I think I went in with very low expectations because this is a movie we didn't even think we really wanted. The production was obviously in turmoil for a while, going through two different directors. We heard so much news of possibly Alden Ehrenreich just being really bad at acting. We heard rumor that he had to get an acting coach. So there was a lot going into this movie. So I just went in with the ballpark, bottom, dirt level expectations. I saw this movie on like a Saturday morning, where if you see a movie on a Saturday morning, especially a Star Wars movie, half of the theater is filled with 10-year-olds. So I was very lucky that the kids in my theater were at least very well behaved. Actually, there was like two dads like sitting next to me, like two middle-aged dads that were actually more annoying than any children were. They were just always like remarking at things that they saw on the screen, like, ooh, wow, that's good, I like that. And it's just like, okay, Dad, settle down, we're just watching Star Wars here, okay?
And have a cup of jalapenos too, right?
No, they didn't. These were milquetoast dads. They would never have jalapenos, so at least that was good. I didn't have to deal with that smell. So anyway, back to Solo. It was a decent, good time. I was pleasantly surprised that Alden Ehrenreich's performance was actually my favorite part of the movie. I thought he was very charming. He had a lot of charisma. I could through the whole movie, I was trying to imagine as if Han Solo was young. I was trying to imagine Harrison Ford as a young kid, and I was like, yeah, I kind of feel this vibe. I think this is working for me. I liked the energy that he brought, and I thought his performance was actually better than Donald Glover's. I thought Donald Glover almost felt like he was doing an impression of Lando Calrissian and not really embodying the character. So that kind of threw me off. I wasn't expecting that to happen. We'll get into spoilers and talk about more specifics, but some fun stuff happened. I think this movie's biggest weakness is that it feels very slow in the middle. We really slowed down and hit the brakes, I feel like. And there's a couple points where I just kind of start looking around the theater, and that's a really bad sign when I'm so distracted I just want to look at something else besides the screen. So that was kind of unfortunate. And there's other kind of bigger things I want to talk about, like the franchise of Star Wars and how these Star Wars stories movies feel to me and prequels. But I'll let that rest, because that's almost like a bigger ordeal that maybe this movie doesn't necessarily have to take on. But surprisingly enjoyable. But at the end of the day, it felt kind of a little bit like Rogue One. Like, yep, that was a Star Wars movie that I watched. didn't feel like I walked away with anything catastrophic to the Star Wars lore that really shook me, So, yeah, so that's how I felt about Solo, Chris. How about you?
I loved it. I had a really good time, actually. I think I'm going to agree with you. I was sitting in the theater 5 minutes beforehand. I'm like, I really need to get hyped for this. I'm tired. It has been a day. I'm not overly anticipating watching this movie. So I could definitely agree going in with very, very low expectations. Might have, I guess, I don't know if it persuaded me, but definitely made it feel better than it was. But I had a really good time in this movie. There are parts, even though we know Han Solo and Chewbacca make it out of this movie, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, we do. There were points where I was like kind of thrill riding when they were driving the Falcon. I'm like, oh my gosh, like something could happen at any point in this movie, which kind of caught me off guard a little bit. When I was watching, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I do have to agree with you. Alden Ehrenreich and I would have to say Don Glover, both very, when they're on the screen, it was charismatic to watch them. Like, it was hard not to watch those characters on the screen. And, it's kind of a given that the actress who played qi'ra, what is her name again?
I've just been calling her the Mother of Dragons.
Mother of Dragons, yeah. What is her name? Emilia Clarke, I believe. Yeah. She always does good stuff, so she wasn't really a surprise. But Lando, like visiting Lando and revisiting Han Solo, were definitely questions we had going into this. We've been following this way too closely, and we knew way too many bad things. And at the end of the day, they surpassed my expectations. They didn't just do the job; they did a better job, and I would love to watch another movie with them if they could figure out how to make that work. So I'm definitely down with that. I've got to even give Woody Harrelson some credit, playing his character Tobias Beckett. I was like, oh, I'm really enjoying this character, these arcs with them. At the end of the day, like you said, does this add anything to the Star Wars universe? Maybe not a whole lot. There might be a couple things that we'll talk about in spoilers, but it didn't do. It's there just kind of for fun, and to me, this has been the most fun Star Wars movie I think we've had of these 4 new ones. Hands down, I had a really good time. I didn't suffer the slowdown part that you did. I didn't feel like the full. How long was this movie? 2 hours and 15 or something like that, maybe.
Yeah, I definitely felt that runtime for sure.
I did not. I was enthralled in this whole thing, so I went right in, and by the time I was like, oh my gosh, it is done. It's time to go home. Is there anything after the credits? There's not. Just to give you guys a heads up so you don't wait around the whole time.
Star Wars movies, yeah, they usually don't do the after credits not.
Yeah. No. So I had a really good time, and I would easily, hands down, walking out, feel the best about this Star Wars movie of any of the 4 we've gotten in the Disney world. So.
Pleasant surprise, that's for sure. But Chris, I would love to jump into spoilers right now because I want to talk about specifics. All
right. Well, I'm going to mark our notes here, and if you've not watched it, go away. If you have watched it, stay around. So, Mike, spoilers. Lay them on me. What do you got? What questions do you got? What do you want to talk about here?
I knew we were off on a good footing at the very beginning of the movie because everything just felt pretty charming off the bat. And I don't know about you, but I loved seeing the practical effects of a Lady Proxima at the beginning of the movie. That worm creature that comes out of that water, that pool, that was really cool. And it was a mixture of CG and practical. Because when Han throws the rock and the light comes in, we can see the face burning. So it's some sort of weird vampire worm thing. But I was like, oh, this is cool. These are the things I really like about Star Wars. When you kind of get that creature with the humans and stuff, that's almost the essence right there. If Star Wars was distilled down to a spice, that's definitely one of the first things in the ingredients is weird aliens. So when I saw that, we were off to a good start. So that got me going, Chris.
I think I also that part is probably the intro is probably the weirdest part of this movie because you just jump right in. Mm-hmm. You don't get baby Han Solo. You don't get him growing up. you get him as he is, and like I think this covers like what, a 3-year time span or something like that.
And you get a unique kind of credits crawl. So it wasn't really crawling. We got some kind of 3 or 4 different PowerPoint slides to set us up for this movie. That like I feel like technically they were trying not to make them a crawl, but I was like they could have crawled across the screen and done.
It could have been a crawl. No one would have said anything. Yeah. So I definitely I think it started off good. To me, I mean, what really was cool was like all the nods to the larger universe as well. It didn't feel heavy-handed at times in this. I don't know about you, but nothing felt heavy-handed to this.
Well, that almost kind of weaves into, I guess, Easter eggs and origins, and like sometimes it did feel like we were getting origins for things that I never needed origins for. Like, I don't know if you caught this one or not, but it felt just kind of ridiculous that it was even happening. So the Millennium Falcon, when we're first introduced to this spaceship in the Star Wars universe, is this old kind of beat up ship that has its own quirks. Only Harrison Ford kind of knows how to operate it, and Chewie, his first mate. And, you know, panels are always like falling down in this thing, popping down, showing wires, and Han has to push it back up. He's like, oh, don't worry about this, don't worry about this rust bucket, I'll get it going, or whatever. And then like we get to see the origins of the flaps in his control like cockpit falling down, which is weird. I never like it almost felt like, okay, we're going a little too far. I can just assume the Falcon gets older and the panels can't hold up there. I don't need to know that a TIE fighter torpedo hit it when they were going through that like weird like space dust storm, and and that's what makes the panel falls down. So that was kind of weird. But yeah, this movie is chock full of like Easter eggs and nods to the point where sometimes there would be like a longing glance by an actor at something on screen, and I'd be like, is this an Easter egg? I feel like I'm supposed to be noticing an Easter egg right now, but I can't remember. So I'm sure that there's some I didn't even catch. So yeah, there's a whole lot of that going on.
So I guess two I guess origins we get here. We get the name of Han Solo. His name is Han. He doesn't have a family or people, so someone gives him the last name Solo. Is probably the most just brushed away thing in the movie. To me, it just kind of happened, and you're like, "Yep, that makes sense."
But they did. They like made it like all timed out. Like, so what's your last name? Oh, I don't have one. He's like, what will your last name be?
I travel
one person.
solo.
Hey, yeah, I travel by myself. I wonder what your last name could possibly be. It's almost like the character could have just looked at like the screen and winked to the audience, like, eh.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was probably like the biggest. I guess that's the heaviest hand, but they don't linger on it like after that. Like, yep, this is Han Solo now. Move along.
Yeah.
Thankfully, no one asked it. I thought they were going to ask him later, like, how do you get your last name?
Well, one of my
favorite
parts of the movie happens right after that heavy-handed naming scene of where we're dropped into the trenches of World War I fighting, and you see like Han just distraught, like covered in mud, and then you see this like TIE fighter right behind him not TIE fighter, was it AT-AT Walker?
Yeah, there's AT-ATs getting dropped in, or AT-STs are getting dropped in.
Yeah, and it just drops, and you see the recoil on its feet, and then it starts walking, and then the camera starts panning, and I'm just like, okay, this is really cool. I really dug that scene, because I mentioned this in Rogue One. I like it when we kind of get to see the nitty-gritty of what war in the galaxy actually looks like. In the Star Wars kind of main canon, we just kind of get like broad, overarching stories of like Skywalkers. We never really get down in the mud, so it was kind of cool to see that. And then also he makes it a point to say like, oh, we're the invaders, this is their planet, and it's just like, okay, we're starting to kind of see the seeds of Han Solo might be a scoundrel, but at least he kind of knows what's right and wrong, he just doesn't always do anything about it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the one right after that was actually on that planet is where he meets Chewbacca for the first time.
Oh, that was maybe my second favorite part of the movie. If you can tell, the first act of the movie was my favorite.
Yeah, you think so? I mean, I had a good... Once they were with Lando, I had a really good time. Because I liked... Was it L337 is the robot name that's with him?
The Liberation Bot, if you will.
Yeah, the one who's like...
L337, which is Leet.
Leet, very much Leet. So meeting Chewbacca has been changed from what we originally read, but like I still think it was kind of cool to see that how they met, how they worked together to get out of there.
Yeah,
so.
I like seeing Chewie as portrayed as a monster, because I've seen that creatively before in like comic book panels or like fan art, what Chewie actually is. He's actually like a hairy monster. We've only ever seen him as a nice guy. So I wasn't expecting him to be in that pit. Even when we saw like a first close up of just like the feet and hands walking, and I was like, oh, this is going to be some sort of cool monster. Then all of a sudden it's Chewie, and I was just like, oh, hey, it's Chewie. But then I was like, oh, he's covered in mud. We're only seeing his silhouette, and he's just kind of moving around like a Sasquatch and Bigfoot. And I was like, this is actually kind of creepy. Like, I'm imagining like Chewbacca eating people right now. I was like,
with his bandolier off, he looks entirely different.
Oh yeah, it's weird when he doesn't have like those humanized clothes on him. And then, Han Solo, he's a scrappy guy, so I kind of like how it's kind of an obvious way. Like, Chewbacca's a smart creature. Like, I don't see why he couldn't have just figured out to punch that pole before. But, I guess if he's been kind of brutalized and tortured, maybe he wouldn't realize it. But
they were watching him, and, they could have easily shot him if he did try it on his own.
I guess that's the point. But I do like how Han is scrappy and kind of can talk his way out of anything, which is kind of his definition of a character. So, and then I guess it kind of makes sense that now we see the origin of how he knows how to talk to Chewie, because he's always kind of known a little Wookiee. So
I mean, I think that was really enjoyable. And then that he like kind of force invited himself along with Tobias Beckett's crew of like ragtag people. And I mean, despite the fact we only got, I forget the guy with multiple arms name, is it Rio? And
are you talking about Jon Favreau?
yeah, Rio, and then I think the girl's name was Val, maybe. It was sad to see them go so early, but I mean, at the same time, I was having a good time with them. I think they could have prolonged that way too long, and ruined those characters. So, what about the Enfys Nest reveal? How did you feel? I thought it was going to be that guy from the beginning.
The Enfys Nest, that was the cool chromed kind of goggle person, right?
Yeah, it turned out to be a girl.
Yeah, that's right. The Myrta from Brave is what I've been hearing people describe the way she looks. It was kind of confusing, because when I first saw the character in the movie and when I saw the line of events, I was just like, oh, that's going to be Emilia Clarke under that helmet for sure. I was almost dead set like, oh, that's what she ended up doing after they got separated on that engineering building planet or whatever. That's what she is now. It's going to be a reveal maybe at the end of this scene or at the end of the movie, but then it didn't end up being that. Actually, Emilia Clarke was brought back into the movie kind of unceremoniously. She was just kind of in that party room on that yacht. So I was kind of expecting maybe a little bit more of a swelling reunion, but anyway, back to the chromed out goggle lady. She was pretty cool. I liked the way she fought. I like the laser kind of chainsaw that she had. It looked like something I've seen my father use in the past to trim the trees in his backyard. So it was kind of cool to imagine that as a weapon. But when she was revealed at the end of the movie, I would just kind of stared at her and I was like, what am I supposed to be reacting to right now? Because since I said this movie is full of Easter eggs and nods and reveals, I was just like, am I looking at a younger version of a character I know, or am I looking at a slightly older version of a prequel character I've seen before? I was like, what am I looking at? And then I started to realize, oh, I think it's just a normal movie reveal where we're just supposed to be surprised that it's a young girl and not just a character in the canon that you might have seen. So I could kind of see that reveal being a little confusing, and I kind of wasted, because I was like, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel right now. It took me a little bit to figure out what was going on. So I was like, okay, I guess it's a cool, badass girl. The more of the reveal to me was that this was the seeds of the rebellion, which is something I didn't realize hadn't been seeded yet in Han Solo's time. So I was like, oh, I guess it's kind of cool to see like somebody that would be described as like a rebel or a pirate would be the seeds of a rebellion. So I liked that kind of reveal, if you will.
Yeah, well, I mean, I thought she looked a lot like the character at the beginning of the movie who was chasing after Han and Qi'ra, because the mask looked the same, and I thought it was going to be a reveal that it was that same person from Corellia, because the mask was the same.
Yeah, I guess that could have been it.
And then I was like, oh, so Han's past caught up to him, kind of thing, like, because he said, "I'll get you." But also, we got Warwick Davis as one of the.
Yeah, I was happy to see that he finally got some FaceTime on a Star Wars movie. So yeah, that was something I picked up on. I was like, oh, good for you, Warwick.
Yeah, and Ron Howard's brother was running the robot fighting.
Yeah, ring. What else has he been in? Like he's kind of had that.
Always like in everything.
Yeah, he's kind of done like that hillbilly kind of face before. Am I thinking like Arrested Development? Yeah, Waterboy. I think that's what it was. Yeah.
He's in Arrested Development. He's in Seinfeld and other shows, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think I've seen him in Seinfeld. Yeah, that might be it, too.
Yeah, so, I mean, he's got a face you'll remember that's drawn out. He's in Austin Powers. He does the joke at the beginning about the dick and balls. He's the radio operator for that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So, he's been around. So, it was fun to see him. Let's swap gears a little bit. Since we're talking about robots, what did you think about L337? I mean, I think her motives were pretty funny, and she was a very... Like, what's the deal with sassy robots? Like, are all robots in these movies sassy? Because, I mean, between him and... What's a Rogue One one?
I think we need... K2SO. I think we need a whole trilogy on robots' rights here. I feel like it's just a cyclical for all of intelligent life that eventually we're going to make robots that enslave and kill us all. I feel like we're edging towards the Matrix here because I was like, geez, robot rights and equal rights for robots, and then talking about Lando and L3 doing it, and it just quote-unquote works. Like, what is going on here? I think the thing that disappointed me the most about L3 was just the fact that she technically died, I guess. Like, I know, like, her interface was, like, uploaded to the Millennium Falcon, which is very much feels like that episode of Futurama. I don't know if you remember that episode of Futurama where
the dog waits for Fry.
Well, no, where the Planet Express ship gets some sort of AI turned into it, and then it falls in love with Bender, and then it's like a robot in love with a robot, but it's a spaceship. So it just felt like that episode of Futurama to me. So it was weird. I was just like, are all of our cool, tall, humanoid robots going to die in our Star Wars Stories movie? We already lost K2SO. Why can't L3 live? And it was kind of a cool design. I don't know if it was too on the nose, or maybe it was like a cool design to just have her having swinging hips. I was just like, this is the first time we get a female droid. Does she have to have like these giant swinging hips? But then at the same time, I was like, well, it looks kind of cool for the character. So I guess maybe I shouldn't be too worried about that.
I think she said something about the way she was shaped was built for something, and there was a line in there.
Oh, but the character, I've seen some kind of behind the scenes shots, is I think the character that voiced her, or at least maybe a stunt double or something, there's a green suited person under that droid. So I think they paint out the chroma key for that character. So I think a lot of it is practical, which is really cool, which maybe kind of informs the motion of the character. So I was like, well, that's cool. I like that they're putting these practical stuff in there. And when she was liberating all of those bots in that in the salt mines, I was like, okay, this is pretty funny. And they're like, revolution, and then all the robots are just running all over the panels and stuff. I was like, okay, I'm digging this. But then she had to die, and I was like, come on, why do you have to kill them all?
I think it kind of goes back to maybe treating Lando like a person, like he doesn't care about anything but himself in L3. And I thought they set up the first game of Sabacc to be where Han Solo wins the ship right out the gate.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Nope, we're gonna yank it out from under you and show you Lando's a cheater.
Yeah, so actually, let's talk about Lando a little bit in that portion of the movie, because I think that's when the movie really slows down for me and stalls. And I feel like I'm really starting to get pulled out of the film. And I don't think it has anything to do with Lando as a character or Donald's performance necessarily. It just kind of felt a little unfocused. I was like, okay, they're building a team here and they're going on a heist and a mission, but I felt like this entire movie has just been a string of heists and missions, so it didn't really feel like we were deviating from any sort of like creative storytelling. I was just like, all right, we're just gearing up for another heist here, and Lando's got to be pulled into the mix because we got to get the Falcon in the storyline. So it felt like they had a lot of plot to serve because so much has been built up in the Star Wars universe. So, and I almost felt like, being a prequel and trying to tell this older story, that they're almost like boxed into a window a little bit. And I was like, okay, of course we got to have like the Kessel Run in there because that's integral to the storyline of the Falcon. So it's, I'm just kind of, I feel like the whole time I'm watching this movie, I'm just like checking these boxes in my mind, not just because we've reported on this movie for a long time. We know a lot what's going into it, but it's just like, as a Star Wars fan, kind of these things have to happen. So I'm just like watching the movie. I was like, okay, box checked, Box checked. Okay, gambling. Is he going to win the Falcon? Check. So it took a little bit of the mystery out of the movie for me.
Well, I think if you view it as a standalone movie, yes, but this movie doesn't line up at the beginning of A New Hope like I thought it would. Like there's a good 5 to 7 years in there, maybe.
That's a gap
that it didn't cover.
And that's actually it's a cool, possibly interesting gap that hasn't been explored very much yet. So I kind of felt like I was in unfamiliar territory. We know a lot about the prequels. We know a lot about Star Wars, and we know now we have some bridges from A New Hope of what happened with Rogue One. So kind of the seeds of the rebellion is an interesting time to kind of view in. So at least you don't know exactly everything that's happening in that timeline.
So, well, I agree. I think the next... I mean, if they didn't give us everything in this movie because they probably didn't know if they were going to do a sequel, there is a room for another movie where we learn about a lot of things that we don't know and could be in, like you said, unfamiliar territory. Mm-hmm. And I think that goes to probably the biggest reveal of this movie, Mike, is Darth Maul is pulling the strings for everything.
Yeah, that was an interesting experience for me because... We're seeing the hologram on screen, and I'm just like, okay, we're seeing a blue hologram. There's a bad guy here for sure. Are we going to see the reveal of like an emperor? That would be kind of interesting to see. That'd be kind of cool, tying into the dark side a little bit. And then the camera starts to pan around, and I'm seeing robot legs, and I'm just like, well, robot legs. And I was like, what Sith Lord has robot legs? Is this like a new person that we haven't seen before? So then it kind of pans up, and I still don't know who it is, and I kind of feel ashamed that I didn't know exactly who it was once I saw the legs. But then when I see freaking Darth Maul's face, and I was just like, oh, they actually did it. I'm surprised that they brought him back. I know the Clone Wars series, I guess maybe is canon, but I don't care.
Clone Wars is, and so is Rebels.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care. I don't even care if they call it canon because that doesn't necessarily mean that they're ever going to use it. So I was like, whoa, they brought Darth Maul back, and then my super nerdy Superhero Slate brain, where we track all this stuff, starts firing on and off, and I'm just like, okay, where does this lead to? What movie is this tying into? What's going on? But what did you think about the reveal? Because I have a little bit more to add to it, but I want to know what you think.
When I saw it, I'm like, what timeline are we in real quick? So it took me a minute to remember that we're after episode 3 and before episode 4. Mm-hmm. But still in the Clone War or in the Rebels show, Maul is dead. He has been stuck on when they find him, he's been stuck on a planet for like several years. Mm-hmm. So this is in between that, like this is before he gets stuck on that planet. And that means we have some time to play with here, which is really, really fun to think about. To me, first off, I noticed that this is still played by the same actor who played him in episode 1.
Oh, so but he gets a speaking role this time. Everybody gets to talk a little bit now, because even Warwick Davis had a line.
Well, so
I guess he did talk a little bit in Phantom Menace. Well, I think maybe a couple words.
Who is the actor who does this? I gotta think. He did Toad in the first X-Men movie as well.
Oh, I didn't know he did Toad. That's cool.
And Snake Eyes in the Ray Park. He did Snake Eyes in the one movie. So it's the same actor playing it, but the first Darth Maul was voiced by Peter Serafinowicz. This one was voiced by Sam Witwer, who voices him in the Clone Wars and Rebels show. Oh. So they actually were able to do that. So they did it over. He mentioned Dathomir, which is his home planet, and that's where qi'ra is going at the end. I think, now we know, we haven't talked news yet, but a Boba Fett movie was announced on Thursday, the day of this release. Mm-hmm. What if Boba Fett is the movie that is the sequel to this instead? Like there's not Han Solo 2, but it's Boba Fett about hunting down Han Solo for the Sith Lords.
Yeah, so because that kind of goes into what I was going to talk about here, where this is kind of an inherent thing that is just never going to be fixed in prequel movies for any franchise out there on the planet. And I don't know if we call it like prequelitis or if we just call it Mike-itis, because maybe it's a problem I only ever go into. But when you go into a prequel movie, the fact is you just know what's going to happen. I mean, yeah, prequels are kind of filling in gaps, adding stories. But at the end of the day, I know exactly what happens to Darth Maul, unless they're going to kind of like change the canon or something like that. Like you said, you can just go on Wikipedia and find out the fate of Darth Maul or watch the Clone Wars. You know, I know exactly what happens to Han Solo. I know where his story goes. I know Chewbacca gets to outlive Han Solo, and we don't really know what his emotional ramifications yet of that death is, kind of sadly. You know, Chewbacca, he might be hurting on the inside. I think he needs a hug. So it's just kind of, it's this weird thing where it's just like, we're in this really big, high-budget, blockbuster Star Wars movie inside this franchise. And this whole movie, you know, we get these kind of reveals like Darth Maul and Han Solo kind of running off at the end to probably go meet Jabba the Hutt, more than likely. So I get this big swelling feeling throughout the movie that we're building to something. This is a Star Wars movie. This is a franchise. We're building to the next movie. We're leaving on a little bit of a cliffhanger. We have like this character that we put a lot of work into. Alden Ehrenreich actually was a pretty cool performance. So we have all of these kind of threads building up to possibly imagining a second Solo movie, but at the end of the day, what's it building to? Like, I know the Death Star gets built, you know, in some fashion and gets destroyed. You know, I know where all of this stuff ends up. So it's just kind of like, I feel a little less invested in the Star Wars Stories movies when they're trying to kind of leave it on cliffhangers or build it up to another story. So it's kind of a weird thing where it's like, I can have a fun time watching this movie, but I just can't be too excited when I walk out of the theater like, oh, I can't wait to see that Boba Fett movie. We get to
I think
see him because
wanting to be excited for a next movie is a problem of movie going in and of itself. You should be excited for the movie as it is, not the next movie. And though this is building towards, I want to see what happens with the character Qi'ra. Like, where did she go at the end of this? Why did we not see her again?
Yeah, I honestly couldn't care about Qi'ra at all. I'm not saying Emilia Clarke didn't do a good idea, but I was just like, I know Qi'ra probably doesn't come back into Solo's life really that much more, just because we're going to be coming up to A New Hope sooner or later. I mean, maybe she could come back after Return of the Jedi a little bit when everyone's a little bit older. But
there's 6 years here where we can play with, though. Because Han Solo here is more upbeat and happy. When we meet him, he's not as happy-go-lucky as he is in this movie.
Yeah, I guess you got a point.
He is more of a grouch in A New Hope, and he's been on the run. He's a little rough looking. He's like, yeah, I'm more of a. He turns more into Beckett's character than the Han Solo in this one.
Yeah, but but it is hard for me to invest in Emilia Clarke because really their main tie is a love story. And I know that he doesn't end up with her. He ends up with Leia, so it's hard for me to invest.
How does he move past her, though? Like, he spent 3 years pining over her.
I get that.
He's not going to stop immediately because she flew away in a ship.
I get that, but is that an interesting story?
I think so, because she's working with a Sith Lord.
Yeah, I mean, I guess on some
you want your lightsabers in your movies. This is your lightsaber chance to go to Dathomir.
Well, what I was about to say, I'm interested in seeing Darth Maul on the screen. I want to see him fight again because that was the coolest part of the prequels, in my opinion, was that fight scene. And I thought it was a cool nod that his theme song, like comes up a little bit behind him when we get to see him. So that was kind of a cool nod. So yeah, I want to see Darth Maul again. I want to see some CG robot legs and some flipping and fighting. I don't know exactly who he fights. I guess he could fight Boba Fett, but we know he's probably
he has to be stranded on a planet to show up in Rebels. What if somehow Han Solo ends up being the person stranding him on that planet?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that could work. I'm not saying that you're wrong, but like when we talk about all these questions, my mind is cranking like a cryptoquip calculator, like crossword, like Wikipedia, like I'm just trying to say puzzles that I can crop in my head. I sound like an idiot, but I'm just like, well, does that work? Does that fit in the timeline? Yeah, I guess it does. And some people were talking about like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if these Star Wars Stories movie all kind of culminate and they all fight Darth Maul, even with that Obi-Wan movie? And I was just like, well, no. Han's never gonna meet Obi-Wan in a Star Wars story movie because they didn't know each other when they met in A New Hope. So then you start running into like limitations in your mind, and it is kind of a little bit of a letdown. It's like, oh man, Ewan McGregor's never gonna he's never gonna get to meet Alden Ehrenreich. It's like, oh, I guess that's something we can't have happen. So there's this needle that definitely needs to be thread in these movies, and sometimes it can get a little mentally exhausting. Like you said, when we saw Darth Maul, you were just like, "Oh God, what timeline are we in?" And it's just
I forgot because I'm like, "What? We're seeing young versions of people. How far prequel did we go here?"
Yeah, there's a lot of mental gymnastics that goes to watching this movie.
But the adventure was so fun. The characters were having a good time. There wasn't as much down about, like, all the other ones have been kind of downer movies, like with death and destruction, and all we really got killed in this was Dryden Voss, which is a bad year for that actor. Paul Bettany, he died as Vision and Dryden Voss. He is not having a good year. He's the opposite of Josh Brolin right now. But he's in two good movies, and L337 really. And I guess, you know, Samuel Beckett. But I mean, I like the adventure, the whole thing. The start and the I guess the end point doesn't matter because we know where it's going. But I really just love the adventure along the way. And
yeah, I mean, that's really all you can hold on to when you know exactly where the story is kind of going to terminate in the long run. Yeah. You're just kind of like, oh, I just have to enjoy what I'm watching on screen. So that's why, like, I love the relationship between Han and Chewbacca. You know, it's fun to see that kind of start to bloom and they kind of start to become buddies. Chewie doesn't really have a whole lot of agency, I feel like, in his story. Like, he just kind of, like, is on this very righteous mission at the beginning of the movie where he just wants to break out and save all of his Chewbacca, all of his Wookiee brethren, and he kind of has like a sweet moment where he gets to break him out of the jail. But then after that, it's just like, I guess Chewie just hangs out with Han for the rest of his life from going on there. I guess he doesn't want to go find Lumpy anymore because I think Lumpy's canon technically somewhere. So I guess he doesn't want to find his wife and son. So I guess I just have to wipe the Star Wars special out of my mind. But all right, Chewie, I guess you can just go hang out with Han.
Yeah, I don't know how much that sits there, but yeah, I mean he may owe a life debt to Han because Han did help him break out and get free.
You say life debt, and Life Day is part of the Star Wars holiday special, so you might have something going there, Chris.
Yeah, so my biggest problem with the prequel trilogy of Star Wars is the very last one all of them try to put people in places they need to be for the New Hope, right? Mm-hmm. But there's like a 30-year gap in there where they don't do anything. They're just sitting there for 30 years. What I like about the possibility of a next Han Solo movie or whatever they do next, is seeing Lando get to Cloud City. Like, why does he live there? Why does, Darth Maul get left behind? Why is Qi'ra dead? Why is Han Solo a more hardened person by the time we get to him on Tatooine? I would love to see the actual run he does for Jabba, where he has to drop the cargo because he gets boarded. There are things I would enjoy seeing play out a little bit because the characters were so enthralling and the acting was so good in this. I just had so much fun, and even with Paul Bettany as much of a dick as he was in this and a bad guy, I love to see his scars open up as he got madder. Like, I don't know what that is, but that was really cool.
It made me uncomfortable. I guess that's good that the movie could get that reaction out of me, but I was like, oh, please don't get mad, Paul Bettany. I don't want to see your face open up again. It really weirds me out. So I guess that's good on that side of things. But like you said, I had a good time with these characters.
Yeah, I just there's a lot more I want to see, but it's fun. We had a good time, and I think that's, if someone's asked me, hey, should I see it? Yes, you should see this movie. I think even if you don't like, if you're on the fence about The Last Jedi or The Force Awakens, whichever one you like better, it doesn't matter because this is fun regardless. The adventure is very Star Warsy.
Yeah, and they do kind of tee it up for a possible Solo sequel, which kind of messes with my neat lizard brain a little bit, because I thought all of these Star Wars stories movies were going to be kind of one-off stories where we just kind of get snapshots of other characters. So even if Darth Maul does show up in a Boba Fett movie, like, are we going to see Ehrenreich ever again? It might be kind of nice for him maybe to pop up in another movie. That kind of starts to pull in a little bit of the Marvel equation and the DNA a little bit, where it's just like, hey, we don't have to have a Hulk movie. We don't have to have another Solo movie, but maybe Han Solo just pops up in the Boba Fett movie. Because I didn't know this. I didn't quite remember, but I guess Han does know of Boba Fett in Return of the Jedi, right? Or before Empire, he gets... he knows of the bounty hunter.
Yeah, he knows of the bounty hunters as well. He's run into several of them a few times. So
yeah, so I guess there's a relationship maybe there to tack on to.
He actually, in the old Legends books, he created Dengar on Axe, or not Dengar, the one who has like the turban on his head and like one robot eye, because he pushed a thruster on in his face and like burnt half his face off.
Oh yeah, I'm not familiar with that canon or that lore.
So what the problem is we normally talk about box office. This movie's only at 150 right now. There's another day left on the holiday weekend, but it's only made 150 million worldwide. Not a huge opening weekend, especially for Memorial Day. I don't know, but as we know, Disney has money to spend.
Yeah,
and a lot of these actors have signed on for 3 movies.
Yeah, I would, but also didn't whoever
so did the Rogue One people.
Yeah, so I guess maybe that's probably just like a blanket deal now with franchise movies. Like we just got to have the option for you to sign on. But
would you want to see another one, even though I know I'm sorry to interrupt, but would you want to see a second one of these?
I would like to see the characters again, but what I was gonna say, I have to see this movie. Again, in order to kind of figure out where the movie kind of slowed down for me. So hopefully that's a problem that could kind of fix moving forward, so I'm not just kind of spacing out and looking around at the theater making weird funny faces at my wife, because I think a non-Star Wars fan like my wife, like I think she can like respect like the lore and kind of like the popularity that she has, but she's just not a big Star Wars person, and there's nothing wrong with that. She's kind of more of Star Trek, but she went to this movie and she really felt the length a lot more than me, and she can't really appreciate all of these different like nuances of the movie, because like I said, she doesn't know all of these little things that happen in the Star Wars universe. So I could see somebody that goes in not knowing much about the character just being like, okay, like I feel like I'm missing something here. Maybe this is a little bit too winking and nodding for a character that maybe people don't know very well, and that might go into the box office a little bit. Maybe it's just like maybe kind of a casual Star Wars fan feels like that they can't enjoy this movie as much, so they're not going to buy a ticket right away. Or maybe Han Solo isn't as much of a draw to the box office as Harrison Ford is as Han Solo. So yeah, I don't really know how the box office is shaking out. I don't really know what the question is.
I'm gonna go the other way, because I think when the public gets word that they fired a director in the middle of it, what do you think of a movie? Even though we're in it, but like that was big public news when Star Wars fires a director.
Yeah, but I feel like that's really going to resonate more with people that are in the Star Wars kind of lore and fandom. Like, those kind of people are going to see the movie no matter what. It's kind of more of these kind of ancillary movie viewers that probably don't see that news and aren't really making their movie-going decisions that way. Or this really could be an Infinity War trickle effect. We've talked about this before. That was a big, huge, blockbuster, gigantic movie that really kicked the summer off right. And maybe after people saw that, they were just kind of like, all right, I saw my big summer blockbuster movie. Maybe now I can kind of wait until the end of June or July until I roll back into the theater again. And also, it's Memorial Day weekend. Maybe I want to go enjoy the weather or something. I mean, I know this is kind of weird economics kind of talk, but I did hear that travel for Memorial Day weekend was up 5% this year compared to last year. So there's more people out there getting out there and vacationing. So heck, add 5% to the box office. That could be what Disney was looking for originally. So there's a lot of things going in here, but I'm no economist. I'm no wizard.
Well, I think you're underplaying like the biggest thing here is Deadpool 2 was last weekend.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
It's not just Infinity War. Like Infinity War is now 5 weeks out.
But even Deadpool 2 didn't quite perform as well as the first one. So maybe the wave of Infinity War is just so catastrophic that no movie can quite swim out of its wake.
I don't think Infinity War is doing it, even though it's sitting at 1.9 billion. It's still number 3 this weekend. Like it's Solo is number 1. Deadpool 2 is half of Solo. I think Deadpool 2 is actually going to eat into it a lot more, because I think we talked about this. The marketing campaign for Deadpool 2 was weird, not weird like the first one was, but like very not prevalent, I guess. And Solo kind of had the same marketing campaign. So I think if we take a look here at Deadpool, just taking a look at Deadpool 2, I want to try to see if I can pull up the opening weekend of Deadpool 2, but 132 for Deadpool 1. Opening weekend for Deadpool 2 was 207. Deadpool 2 actually outperformed Deadpool 1 opening weekend. So, I don't know. I just think there's a lot of movies in the box office right now. And trying to watch them all might be a problem. Black Panther is still in the theaters, Mike. It's 14 this week. So.
Yeah, that's surprising. But yeah, either way, the box office performance is not tanking Star Wars at all in any given fashion. But yeah, it was an interesting. I don't want to call it an experiment, but it was kind of maybe nice. It was nice to see something a little different. You know, we got to see some of our old characters recast. We didn't really see a whole lot of that in Rogue One. Rogue One was kind of an all new cast of characters
and a CGI old one.
Yeah, that we got to see live and die on screen. So this was a little bit of a different equation, and we're kind of seeing how it plays out. But, you know, if you stay subscribed to the Superhero Slate podcast, listen to our weekly news episodes, we'll keep you informed of the box office and how things go. And if we hear little whispers and trickles of possibly a Solo 2, which what do you call it? Duo a Star Wars story?
Duo a Star Wars story? That's a Chris joke. Who are you? That's mine. Don't get into those lowbrow humor things. No, I mean, I don't know. I think this is going to have legs, and I think we're going to see more people be going over the next couple weeks. Because there's nothing out next week, is there? That you're off the top of your head?
I think off the top of my head, I think the next big movie is either Jurassic World or Incredibles.
Incredibles is the 15th, so we got like 2 weeks of Han Solo maybe
and
getting some legs.
I believe Jurassic World is the next week after. So, yeah, so you might have a little bit of a breather right now.
Yeah, word of mouth. I've had a lot of people ask me how this movie is and that they should go see it. So I'm hoping word of mouth will get more people going than just, initial marketing. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. Any last notes on this, Mike? I mean, I think
I've said my piece. Just like Rogue One, I probably won't see this movie again until it possibly hits Netflix streaming, but who knows if actually that'll happen. That Disney streaming service might drop before it gets a chance, but we all know I'm getting the Disney streaming service, so it's probably going to be a free stream for me until I see it again.
I'm not going to ask you to rank this on Star Wars movies because I think that's just unfair to that. But do you think, I was thinking about this on the way home, in 30 years, whenever people revisit Star Wars again, do you have them watch them in release or in consecutive timeline order now? Or how do you do that?
Oh, geez, I don't even know. I thought you were going to ask me, I know I can't rank them, but would you say it's better than Rogue One? And I was like, yeah, it's definitely better than Rogue One. Characters are more memorable, more enjoyable, more
I agree
fun.
It's better than Rogue One. But I just think, if someone has never seen Star Wars before, and people out there do exist, God bless their souls, do you tell them to do 1, 2, 3 Solo Rogue One? 4, 5,
guess
6, 7?
if they're looking for homework, I guess you got a lot of shit that you need to watch, but that's got to be such a weird and jarring experience for somebody that's never seen a Star Wars movie. Just like, okay, so you're gonna go ahead and you're gonna watch this in chronological order. So you're gonna start with the prequels, which is gonna be tons of CGI and just flat staging. And then you're going to jump to these really high-end kind of boutique blockbuster Star Wars stories. Then you're going to transfer into the original trilogy, which was made in the freaking 70s, and it's going to be very strange and look very
kind of
weird.
Like a bell curve. Like the high point's in the middle.
Yeah, you're going to be bouncing all over the place. And then eventually you'll get to The Last Jedi that made everybody happy and everybody angry. So let me know when you get to that. I want to know what you think.
You're going to get to a fork in the road. It's called The Last Jedi. You're either going to like it or you're going to hate it. There's no in between.
We don't know if you're going to abandon it, but I guess if you made it through the prequels, I mean that's a trial on its own. But
yeah, right. This is the biggest uphill challenge you'll ever have. So, yeah, your favorite character is Jar Jar. Let me tell you, you're gonna love him later when he doesn't show up. So,
oh man, he's pulling the strings. Oh man, I would have lost it if Jar Jar was actually in that hologram. Oh my God, the whole world would be.
They'll never make him a mastermind, but I did expect to almost see him on like the street somewhere. So
I'm honestly expecting almost to see like a Gungan head on like a wall or something, like a taxidermied Gungan.
There's your Boba Fett. There's your Boba Fett trophies.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, he's hired to take out Jar Jar later on. It's Predator style. All right, that's our Star Wars Han Solo, a Star Wars story review. Mike, if people want to know what you're up to, what you're watching, what your favorite Star Wars movies and scenes are, where can they find you at?
Well, they can follow me at Mike Royer Design on Instagram and Twitter to see what I'm out there tweeting and drawing. And if you want to read my webcomics, you can check that out at pickledcomics.com. Chris, if people want to see what you're up to, you're hitting up all the cons in your area this summer. Where can they follow you?
You can find me on Twitter at Valdan, Valdan, or you can head over to my Instagram, Valdan87, I think. Is it 87? Probably. I don't remember. I lose track of this stuff. Or you can head over to Comic UI. I'm behind on a couple videos there. We've been swamped at work in these 4-day work weeks. Despite being pleasant, means I have to fit 5 days of work in the mic. It's just dragging me down. So, yeah, you can find us there. If people want to hear more of our news episodes that we do every week, because I don't think we have another movie scheduled unless you want to do Incredibles 2, which I kind of really do. That is a superhero movie. So if people want to hear our regular news shows in the interim, Mike, where can they find us at?
Well, as always, please visit superheroslate.com. That is the best place to find all the avenues we host our show, and to get our awesome show notes if you're listening to a news episode when you're subscribed, because we're going to talk about a lot of things, and we got a lot of links thrown in there. So you can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, TuneIn, Stitcher. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and you can get merch at superheroslate.com/store. If you're liking the show, please consider leaving us a review on iTunes. You can drop us a comment on YouTube. You can interact with us however you see fit. Retweets, comments. We love all of that. We love chatting with you guys. And if you want to be a super fan of the show, if you want to be able to get that tattooed across your lower back and be like the sexy tramp that you really want to be, all you have to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, and we will be here every week, and you will be a super fan.
A superhero tramp stamp. That's not a ringing endorsement, Mike.
Yeah.
So, oh well. Well, I guess we're going to head over to the news, talk that over. We'll check you out over there, guys. See you then.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.
I've got a really good feeling about this.